And, JD Vance is an embarrassment to the law school that I attended. But the fact of the matter is he's telling us something that we should have already known. And last week I said it. They are not going to obey court orders. They have decided that they are going to push the boundaries on executive power by basically infringing on the Article 1 power of Congress.
George Conway just unleashed a savage takedown of JD Vance and Donald Trump. And it's every bit the train wreck you'd expect, and more.
And then some.
He's not just tossing shade, he's bringing receipts and handing them out like Halloween candy.
JD Vance gets
thoroughly
dismantled.
exposed.
And when it comes to Trump, Conway
let's just say
pulls
Conway
no punches.
isn't holding back.
It's a no-holds-barred roast. Sharp,
that's as cutting
relentless,
as it is
and downright hilarious. Buckle up. This one's going to
leave a
sting.
mark.
Donald Trump, we know, is basically a Matryoshka doll, how do you say that, of lies and mendacity. Basically, he'll lie, then he'll lie about lying, then he'll lie about lying about lying, and then he'll lie about lying about lying about lying. And that's what he...
George Conway didn't just criticize JD Vance and Donald Trump, he turned them into walking punchlines so sharp even their loyalists had to do a double take. Vance, who somehow persuaded a whole state to send him to the Senate, now sees his image collapsing faster than a sandcastle in a hurricane.
The only recourse is to go out on the streets and march. That is the only recourse. The courts have no mechanism to enforce their orders other than through the United States Marshal Service, and thus through the Department of Justice, thus through the executive branch. The reason why we obey court orders is because the executive branch complies with court orders. If the executive branch does not comply with court orders and makes a point of saying that we will not comply with court orders, the rule of law, as far as the federal government is concerned, is over. And that is something we need to start focusing on and discussing, because that's where these people will go.
JD Vance, a self-styled intellectual who somehow convinced Ohio voters that penning a memoir about hillbillies made him Senate material. When it comes to political depth, he's about as shallow as a kiddie pool. On serious policy, Vance brings the expertise of someone who glances at a Wikipedia page for 30 seconds before hitting record on his podcast. He's all sound bites, no substance.
There is no logical stopping point for them. And this is, the only recourse will be for people to get out and say, we want the rule of law. We want a government that obeys the law. And that's going to require people to go out on the streets, because there is no other alternative.
He's the embodiment of empty rhetoric, a guy who talks in circles, aiming to sound profound while hoping no one catches on that he's saying absolutely nothing. You could listen to him for hours and still have no idea what, if anything, he actually stands for. His only true conviction seems to be staying as vague and non-committal as possible, unless you're someone who expects him to take a real stand on meaningful issues. In that case, you're the problem.
You went to law school, the same law school as JD Vance. What do you think, what do you think he learned there that prepped him for what happened last night?
I think that what he might have gotten out of Yale Law School would be just sort of trying to be ethereal. I think that's what a lot of people get out of Yale Law School. It's an odd place to go to law school, because a lot of people end up not being lawyers and they end up just doing something else, and they end up not really focusing on the law very much. But if you want to learn law, you can actually learn it there, because there's just and I don't think there's enough practical advocacy training there, or maybe again, it's been 40 years since I
And then there's Donald Trump, the human embodiment of a bad reality show. For a guy who never stops bragging about being a winner, he collects losses with the consistency of a toddler going up against a chess grandmaster. It's almost impressive how consistently wrong he is about nearly everything. His understanding of politics is about as deep as a puddle, and every time he talks, it's like watching a toddler try to explain quantum physics. Mildly amusing, but deeply unsettling that anyone ever took him seriously to begin with.
There was a bipartisan immigration bill that was going to try to fix some of this stuff. And Trump didn't want to fix it. He made the House vote against it because he doesn't want a rational system. He wanted the system to fail. And they don't want law.
If you're enjoying this, go ahead and hit subscribe, because George Conway is serving up political takedowns with the precision of a scalpel and the impact of a wrecking ball. Watching him go after JD Vance and Donald Trump feels like witnessing an adult roast two overconfident toddlers who somehow wandered onto a political stage. Conway's ability to cut through their nonsense is a masterclass in sharp, relentless wit. While Trump and Vance stumble through a version of reality they barely seem to grasp, Conway coolly dismantles their contradictions like flimsy props in a bargain bin stage play held together by desperation, denial, and a stunning lack of self-awareness. When it comes to Trump, Conway doesn't pull punches. He calls out the endless flip-flops, the stream of half-baked promises, and the willful ignorance Trump wears like a trophy. But it's JD Vance who takes the hardest hits. His political rise reads like a satire of ambition without principle. And Conway's not buying the performance, let alone giving him a pass.
He can't help himself but emotionally react to things. One of the things that he's a narcissistic sociopath. That's the thing everyone has to kind of get used to. It's the reason why you cannot normalize him. You cannot treat him like a normal human being, because he's not. He is.
Conway takes aim at Vance's shameless pandering, his odd obsession with cozying up to the most extreme fringes of the Republican Party, and his glaring desperation for relevance. And he does it all with the cool detachment of someone critiquing a toddler's crayon drawing of a horse. Calm, ruthless, and effortlessly savage. It's not just sharp, it's comedy gold with a razor's edge. Watching Conway tear into Trump and Vance feels like a stand-up act where the punchlines are brutal. Doses of reality. The real twist? Trump and Vance don't even realize they're the joke. Trump's entire political persona is built on the myth of being a self-made genius. In reality, he's about as self-made as a gas station sandwich. Plastic wrapped, stuffed, with artificial filler, and somehow still taken seriously by far too many people. The man's idea of hard work involves dodging taxes and bankrupting businesses, yet crowds still cheer like he's some kind of visionary. It's the political equivalent of someone sprinting into a burning building and declaring themselves the fire chief, confident, delusional, and dangerously unqualified.
I think everybody overthinks this guy. There's no strategy. There is no thought. And the brand is just him. He lives in this world where there's just him. Okay?
But it's not just him, George. It's a hell of a lot of people out there who've gotten sucked up into this thing and that are perpetuating
I agree with
that brand.
I'm talking about in his mind.
Okay.
None of us matter. Those people don't matter. They're not real people. He doesn't care what happens to them. If they show him adulation and they do what his bidding, that's good. If they don't do his bidding, he will destroy them. He will discard them. None of us, in his mind, okay, he's someone as a man with no empathy, a man with no conscience. It's just him.
Vance, meanwhile, is playing a different kind of con. His political persona hinges on the idea that he's a champion of the working class, despite having spent most of his life comfortably nestled in elite circles. It's like watching a trust fund kid lecture coal miners about struggle. His whole image is a masterclass in pandering, trying to connect with everyday Americans while staying completely detached from their reality. If you've ever wanted to see what gaslighting an entire state looks like, just follow JD Vance's rise to power. He talks like he understands Ohio, but he's just another well-heeled politician in a tailored suit, parroting lines crafted by billionaire donors. Conway's takedown of Vance, and others like him, isn't just brutal, it's necessary. It cuts through the performance and reminds us that the political circus isn't only about Trump and his entourage, it's also about the spectacle of the privileged pretending to be populace, and the few voices still bold enough to call out the fraud.
Far along there, and then I just started having this queasy feeling like I don't really want to work in this administration, because I was just watching the shit show that was going on with the Russia thing, with the firing of Comey, and the guy. It's just like the administration shrugged